I want you to imagine standing at your mother's grave in the pouring rain. The woman who gave you life is 6 feet under, and you can barely breathe through the grief. Now imagine your wife of 35 years walking up to you, reaching into her purse and handing you divorce papers. Right there, at the cemetery, while the dirt is still fresh on your mother's casket. That's what Gwendolyn did to me. My name is Gerald, and I'm 62 years old, and 3 years ago, on the worst day of my life, my wife looked me in the eyes and told me she was taking everything. The house, the savings, everything we'd built together for 3 decades. Her brother Desmond, her lawyer, stood 20 feet away with a smirk on his face like they'd just won the lottery. Gwendolyn thought she was smart, thought she had it all figured out, thought I was too broken, too stupid, too grief-stricken to fight back. She had no idea what I'd found 2 weeks earlier, no idea what was coming. And when it hit her, when everything she'd so carefully planned came crashing down around her, the look on her face was worth every sleepless night, every moment of silent rage, every second I spent pretending to be the fool she thought I was. This is the story of how my wife tried to destroy me at my mother's funeral, and how she ended up destroying herself instead. But here's what I need you to understand. This isn't a story about revenge. It's about something much deeper, something that'll make you question everything you think you know about betrayal, justice, and forgiveness. But I'm not giving you the whole story yet. Not until I know you're ready for it. If you want to see how a man everyone underestimated turned the tables on the people who betrayed him, if you want to know what I found in that folder that changed everything, if you want to witness the moment Gwendolyn's confidence shattered into 1,000 pieces, then you need to subscribe right now. Hit that notification bell because this story has twists you won't see coming. Drop a like if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. And comment below telling me, would you have fought back or would you have just walked away? Because what I did, it took patience, strategy, and a kind of cold calculation that surprised even me. Let's begin. The rain came down like God himself was weeping for my mother. February rain, the kind that's half ice and cuts right through your coat, through your suit, through your skin, until it settles somewhere deep in your bones where warmth can't reach it anymore. 43 people stood around my mother's grave at Riverside Cemetery. I counted them. When you're watching the last person you truly loved being lowered into the ground, your mind does strange things to protect itself. It focuses on details, counts things, notices the mud on Reverend James's shoes, the way Josephine from Mom's church choir can't stop crying, the fact that my wife Gwendolyn hasn't shed a single tear, not one. Mom, Vicenta Patterson, 79 years old, survived by one son and a daughter-in-law she never quite trusted, was gone. Emphysema, they said, but I think it was really loneliness. Dad died 11 years ago, and Mom had been slowly fading ever since, like a photograph left too long in the sun. The Reverend was saying something about ashes and dust, about eternal rest and God's mercy. I wasn't really listening. I was watching Gwendolyn. My wife of 35 years stood beside me under a black umbrella, her face perfectly composed, checking her phone every few minutes like she was waiting for something. Or someone. "Gerald," she whispered, touching my elbow. "I need to talk to you." "Not now," I said. My voice sounded hollow even to me. "Yes, now." There was something in her tone. Not grief, not sympathy. Something harder. The Reverend finished his prayer. People began to drift away, offering me their condolences in hushed voices that all blended together into meaningless noise. "Sorry for your loss. She's in a better place. If you need anything." They meant well. They always do. But Gwendolyn stayed rooted beside me, waiting. When the last mourner finally left, when it was just us and the gravediggers standing at a respectful distance smoking cigarettes, she reached into her purse. For a moment, God help me, I thought she was going to pull out tissues, that maybe she'd just been holding it together for my sake and now she'd finally let herself cry. Instead, she pulled out a manila envelope. "I think this is the right time," she said, her voice steady, clinical. "Clean break, Gerald. No drama." I stared at the envelope, stared at her. "What is that?" "Divorce papers." She said it like she was announcing what we were having for dinner. "I've already signed them. You just need to add your signature." The world tilted. I swear to God, I felt the earth actually shift beneath my feet. You're giving me divorce papers? Here? Now?" "It makes sense." Gwendolyn glanced at her phone again. "Your mother's gone. No reason to keep pretending anymore. The house is in my name. Desmond made sure of that. The joint accounts are frozen. You've got 30 days to find somewhere else to live." Her brother, Desmond, her lawyer brother who I'd helped put through law school 20 years ago when he was broke and desperate. I looked past her and saw him then, standing by his Mercedes at the cemetery gates, watching us. He raised his hand in a small wave. Not friendly, triumphant. 35 years, I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. "We've been married 35 years, Gwendolyn. And I've been unhappy for at least 20 of them." She thrust the envelope at me. "Sign the papers, Gerald. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You'll get a few thousand from the accounts. Enough to start over." The rain kept falling. Mom's casket sat beside the open grave, waiting to be lowered the rest of the way down. And my wife, the woman I'd worked myself to exhaustion for, built a life with, trusted with everything, stood there looking at me like I was a problem she'd finally figured out how to solve. I should have yelled, should have screamed, broken down, begged, something. That's what she expected, what she wanted maybe. Proof that she'd won, proof that she'd finally broken me. Instead, I took the envelope, opened it slowly, read the first page, then the second. "You're right," I said quietly. "Clean break." Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe. Disappointment that I wasn't fighting? I couldn't tell. "Good," she said. "Desmond will be in touch about the details." She turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, Gerald, I did love you once, a long time ago, before you became so small. Small." She walked away, her heels clicking on the wet pavement. I watched her get into Desmond's Mercedes, watched them drive away together, probably heading somewhere expensive to celebrate their victory. The gravediggers approached, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Patterson, we need to—" "I know," I said. "Go ahead." I stood there while they lowered my mother the rest of the way down, while they filled the grave with dirt, covering her casket shovel by shovel until there was nothing left but a mound of wet earth and flowers already starting to wilt in the rain. And the whole time, I thought about the folder I'd found in Gwendolyn's car 2 weeks ago, the folder she didn't know I'd copied, the folder that contained every single detail of what she and Desmond had been planning for the last 18 months. "I'm sorry, Mom," I whispered to the grave. "I'm sorry you had to see me like this, but I promise you, I promise, she's not going to win." The rain kept falling, but somewhere inside me, something else was rising, something cold and patient and absolutely certain. Gwendolyn thought I was small, thought I was broken, thought she'd won. She had no idea what was coming. Let me take you back. Not to explain, not to justify, but because you need to understand how we got here. How 35 years of marriage ends at a cemetery with divorce papers and a brother-in-law's smirk. I met Gwendolyn in the summer of 1988 at the county fair in Riverside. She was working the ticket booth at the Ferris wheel, 23 years old with dark hair and a smile that made me forget my own name. I was 27, working construction 6 days a week, sawdust still in my hair when I walked up to buy tickets I didn't want for rides I'd never go on, just to keep talking to her. "You gonna actually use those, or just keep staring at me?" she'd said, and I'd laughed, and that was it. That was the beginning. We got married 8 months later. Small ceremony. Her brother Desmond standing up as best man because I didn't have many friends back then, just worked too much to make them. Gwendolyn wore a white dress from a consignment shop and looked like an absolute dream. We honeymooned in Gatlinburg for 3 days, all we could afford, and I swear to God I'd never been happier. The first 10 years were good. Not perfect, but good. I built us a house with my own hands, every nail and board chosen carefully, every room planned with her in mind. We had 2 kids. Laura came first, then Marcus 2 years later. Gwendolyn stayed home with them while I worked. Double shifts when I could get them. Overtime, side jobs on weekends. Whatever it took. She wanted things. That's not a crime, wanting things. A nicer car, better furniture, membership at the country club on the hill where all the doctors and lawyers played golf. I tried to give her what I could, stretched every dollar until it screamed, but it was never quite enough. Deborah's husband bought her a BMW, she'd say over dinner. Linda's going to Paris next month. Their house has a pool, Gerald, an actual pool. I'd nod and say something about saving up, about being patient, about how we were doing fine. Better than fine. We had health, we had family, we had each other. Except somewhere along the way, we stopped having each other. It started small. Gwendolyn taking longer getting ready, checking her appearance in every mirror, every window reflection, like she was searching for something she'd lost and couldn't quite remember. She got a part-time job at a boutique downtown, said she needed something for herself, needed to feel like more than just someone's wife and someone's mother. I understood that. I did. So I encouraged her. Laura and Marcus grew up, moved away, Laura to Seattle for tech work, Marcus to Denver with his wife and our grandson. The house got quiet, just me and Gwendolyn rattling around in all that space I'd built, and somewhere in that quiet, I realized we didn't actually have much to say to each other anymore. Then Mom got sick. Really sick. The emphysema she'd been managing for years suddenly got worse. She needed constant care, and Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn didn't handle it well. "She's your mother, not mine," she'd said when I asked her to sit with Mom while I worked. I didn't sign up to be a nurse. I started taking time off, visiting Mom every day, sometimes twice a day, feeding her, reading to her, watching her fade incrementally, like a light on a dimmer switch being slowly turned down. And that's when Gwendolyn changed. 6 months before Mom died, I started noticing things. Phone calls where she'd leave the room, talking in hushed voices. Book club meetings that ran until midnight. New perfume, expensive perfume, designer clothes appearing in her closet that we definitely couldn't afford on my salary. I'm not stupid. I know what those signs usually mean. So one night I checked her phone while she was in the shower. Found texts with someone named Kay. Nothing explicit, but intimate. Inside jokes, plans to meet, heart emojis that felt like knives. I confronted her. "You're being paranoid," she'd said. "Kay is Catherine from book club. God, Gerald, you're so insecure." Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was insecure. I apologized, tried to be better, more attentive. Took her to dinner at places we couldn't afford, bought her flowers, asked about her day. She smiled, accepted the gifts, and kept taking those phone calls in the other room. 2 weeks before Mom's funeral, I found the folder. Gwendolyn had asked me to get her sunglasses from her car. Simple request. Except when I opened the glove box, a manila folder fell out. Property documents, bank statements, legal papers with Desmond's letterhead. I should have closed it, should have put it back, should have trusted my wife. Instead, I read every page, and what I found wasn't an affair. It was something so much worse. The property deed to our house, transferred into Gwendolyn's name only. My signature forged, but close enough that a casual observer wouldn't notice. Bank statements showing systematic withdrawals from our joint accounts. $500 here. $1,000 there. Never enough to trigger alerts, but over 2 years, nearly $340,000 moved into an offshore account I didn't even know existed. But the emails. God, the emails were what made my hands shake. James says the old lady probably has another year at most, Gwendolyn had written to Desmond. When she dies, Gerald will be completely devastated. Perfect time to serve him. He won't fight. He never fights. Desmond's response: make sure all assets are secured before then. Once the divorce is final, he gets nothing. You've earned this, Gwen. 35 years with that boring carpenter. You deserve better. I sat in that car for an hour. Just sat there holding that folder while the world rearranged itself around me. My wife wasn't having an affair. She was robbing me blind. She and her brother had spent nearly 2 years planning this, using my mother's illness as cover, using my grief as a weapon, and they'd calculated, correctly, that I'd be too broken to fight back. I took photos of everything with my phone, every document, every email, every bank statement. Then I put the folder back exactly where I'd found it, got her sunglasses, and walked back into our house wearing a smile that felt like broken glass in my mouth. Found them, I'd said, handing them over. Thanks, honey, she'd replied, not even looking up from her phone. For 2 weeks I played the perfect fool, the devoted husband, the grieving son. I installed a voice-activated recorder in her car. My name was still on the title, perfectly legal. I documented every shopping trip, every lunch with Desmond, every moment of their victory celebration. And when Mom finally died, when I stood at her bedside holding her hand as she took her last breath, the first thing I thought was, I'm so sorry, Mom. Sorry you had to see me married to someone like her. The second thing I thought was, she's going to pay for this. 3 days later, at the funeral, Gwendolyn handed me those divorce papers with that look on her face. That confident, certain look that said she'd won. She had no idea the war was just beginning. I want you to understand something about grief. It doesn't just hollow you out, it clarifies you. Strips away everything unnecessary until you see the world exactly as it is. And what I saw, sitting in that cheap apartment 3 days after my mother's funeral, was crystal clear. Gwendolyn thought I was broken. She wasn't entirely wrong, but she made one fatal mistake. She assumed broken meant powerless. The apartment was a 1-bedroom above a dry cleaner on Market Street. The place smelled like chemicals and old carpet, and the radiator clanked all night like someone trapped inside trying to get out. I'd paid first and last month's rent with money from a separate account Gwendolyn didn't know about. My emergency fund from side jobs over the years. $3,000 that suddenly felt like survival itself. I set up my laptop on the scratched kitchen table and opened the folder of photographs I'd taken from Gwendolyn's car. Every document, every email, every bank statement showing the systematic theft of our life savings. But I needed more than evidence. I needed a strategy. I needed someone who understood that this wasn't just about divorce. This was war. And in war, you don't charge in screaming. You plan. You wait. You strike when they least expect it. That's how I found Josephine Chen. Not Josephine, Margaret. Margaret Chen. I'd heard the name years ago from a buddy whose divorce had gotten ugly. If you ever need a shark, he'd said, Margaret Chen. Retired judge. Takes special cases. Costs a fortune but worth every penny. I didn't have a fortune, but I had evidence. And sometimes that's currency enough. Her office was in a converted brownstone downtown, the kind of place that whispered old money and older secrets. The receptionist, a young man with perfectly styled hair, looked me over with barely concealed judgment. My coat was still damp from the funeral. I probably looked exactly like what I was, a man who'd been destroyed and was trying to figure out how to stand up again. Mr. Patterson, the receptionist said, Mrs. Chen will see you now. The office was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with legal volumes that looked older than me. Behind a massive desk sat Margaret Chen, 73 years old according to her website, silver hair pulled back severe, eyes that had seen every kind of human ugliness and remained unimpressed by all of it. Mr. Patterson. She gestured to the leather chair across from her desk. You have 30 minutes. Make them count. I slid the folder across to her, said nothing, just watched. She opened it slowly, methodically. Her expression never changed as she flipped through page after page of my wife's betrayal. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The only sound was paper rustling and the distant hum of traffic outside. Finally, she closed the folder, looked at me. Really looked at me, like she was measuring something beyond what showed on the surface. "This isn't just divorce fraud, Mr. Patterson," she said quietly. "This is systematic financial elder abuse, forgery on the property transfers, wire fraud if any of these offshore movements crossed state lines. Your wife and her brother could face serious criminal charges, prison time." "I don't want her in prison," I said. My voice came out harder than I intended. Margaret raised one silver eyebrow. "Most people in your position would." "I'm not most people." I leaned forward. "I want her humiliated, publicly, completely, the way she humiliated me at my mother's funeral. I want her to lose everything she values, her money, her status, her smug certainty that she's smarter than everyone around her. I want her to feel exactly what she made me feel." "Revenge," Margaret said, not a question. "Justice," I corrected. She was quiet for a long moment, studying me. Then she opened a drawer, pulled out a legal pad, and began writing. "Tell me everything, from the beginning, every detail, every conversation, every moment you suspected something was wrong, and then tell me what you've documented." I talked for 2 hours, told her about finding the folder, about the voice recorder I'd installed in Gwendolyn's car, about the emails where she and Desmond mocked me, called me weak, stupid, too grief-stricken to fight back. Margaret took notes in precise handwriting, occasionally asking questions that cut right to the bone of things. "The recorder in the car," she said. "Your name is on the title?" "Yes, we bought it together, but I'm the primary owner." "Good, one-party consent state. Anything recorded is admissible." She made a note. "These forged signatures, do you have examples of your actual signature for comparison?" "Years' worth, credit card receipts, contracts, legal documents." "Even better." More notes. "The offshore account, do you know which bank?" "Cayman National. Account numbers in the emails." Margaret smiled then. Not warm, predatory. "Mr. Patterson, your wife made a critical error. She documented everything. Every email, every transfer, every conversation with her brother is evidence. She built her own cage. So what do? We file a countersuit, but we keep the criminal evidence sealed for now. That's our nuclear option. We let her think she's winning. Let her get comfortable, confident. The more secure she feels, the harder she'll fall when we pull the rug out." "How long will this take?" 6 months, maybe more. Can you wait that long?" I thought about Mom's grave, about Gwendolyn's face when she handed me those papers, about 35 years of my life stolen by someone I'd trusted completely. "I can wait," I said. "I can wait as long as it takes." Margaret stood, extended her hand. "Then we have an agreement. My fee is $15,000. Considering your situation, I'll take it from the settlement. But understand something, Mr. Patterson. Once we start this, there's no stopping. This will get ugly. Your wife will fight back. Are you prepared for that?" I shook her hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Mrs. Chen," I said, "I've been preparing for this my entire marriage. I just didn't know it until now." I left her office as the sun was setting, painting the downtown buildings in shades of orange and gold. For the first time since Mom died, I felt something other than grief and rage. I felt purpose. Gwendolyn thought she'd won, thought I was too small, too weak, too broken to fight back. She was about to learn exactly how wrong she was. 6 months. That's how long I lived in that apartment above the dry cleaner, playing the role of defeated husband while Margaret Chen built our case like a general preparing for war. 6 months of Gwendolyn living in our house, my house, the one I'd built with my own hands, posting photos on Facebook of her new chapter. 6 months of watching her date a personal trainer named Kyle, 20 years younger, all muscles and teeth. 6 months of her friends commenting, "You go, girl," and "living your best life," while I ate ramen and documented every single mistake she made. Because she made plenty. The freedom party she threw at the house, charging everything to credit cards that were still joint accounts. The vacation to Cancun with Kyle, funded by money she'd stolen. The brand new Lexus sitting in the driveway, purchased with my life savings. She got sloppy, confident, posted everything online like she was bulletproof. Margaret collected it all like a hunter collecting pelts. "She's making this almost too easy," Margaret had said at our last meeting before court. "The judge is going to crucify her." The hearing was set for August 15th. Hot enough that the courthouse air conditioning couldn't keep up, everyone sweating through their business clothes. I wore the same suit I'd worn to Mom's funeral. Seemed appropriate somehow. Gwendolyn arrived in designer everything. Dress, shoes, handbag that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Kyle walked beside her like an accessory, one hand possessively on her lower back. Desmond met them at the entrance, briefcase in hand, that same smirk I remembered from the cemetery. They were laughing. Actually laughing. I sat on a bench outside the courtroom, hands folded, watching them. Gwendolyn saw me and her smile grew wider. She whispered something to Kyle. He looked at me and smirked too. They thought this was over. Thought today was just a formality before she took everything. "Mr. Patterson." Margaret appeared beside me, her voice low. "Are you ready?" "I've been ready for 6 months." Remember, we stay calm. We let them feel confident right up until the moment we drop the hammer. Understood? I nodded. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge's bench that looked like it had seen 1,000 broken families pass through. We took our seats, me and Margaret on one side, Gwendolyn, Kyle, and Desmond on the other. Judge Patricia Morrison entered. 60-something, gray hair, reading glasses on a chain, the expression of someone who'd heard every lie and seen every trick. "Patterson versus Patterson," she said, settling into her chair. "Dissolution of marriage. Mr. Crane, you're representing the petitioner?" Desmond stood, all confidence and expensive cologne. "Yes, Your Honor. This is a straightforward case. My client, Mrs. Patterson, is seeking dissolution after 35 years of marriage. The assets have been clearly divided, the property transferred according to forged documents," Margaret said, standing. Her voice cut through the courtroom like a blade. The room went silent. Desmond's smile faltered. "Excuse me?" "Your Honor, if I may." Margaret approached the bench and I saw her pull out a folder. The folder. "I'd like to submit evidence of fraud, systematic financial elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud." Gwendolyn's face went white. I watched the color drain from her cheeks like water from a sink. "Your Honor," Desmond sputtered, "this is highly irregular. We weren't informed of any—" "You weren't informed because you were a co-conspirator, Mr. Crane." Margaret's voice was ice. "I have emails between you and your sister discussing how to forge Mr. Patterson's signature, how to move assets without his knowledge, and how to time the divorce filing to coincide with his mother's death to ensure he'd be too grief-stricken to fight back." Judge Morrison's expression hardened. "Approach." Margaret walked to the bench. Desmond followed, his confidence evaporating with every step. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I watched Desmond's face go from confused to angry to terrified in the span of 30 seconds. The judge looked at the documents, looked at Desmond, then looked at Gwendolyn, who sat frozen in her seat, Kyle's hand no longer on her back. "Step back," Judge Morrison said. "Mrs. Patterson, please stand." Gwendolyn stood on shaking legs. "Did you forge your husband's signature on property transfer documents?" "Your Honor, Yes or no, Mrs. Patterson?" Silence. Then, barely audible. Desmond said it was legal. Did you open an offshore account without your husband's knowledge and transfer approximately $340,000 of joint marital assets into that account? Gwendolyn looked at Desmond. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Mrs. Patterson, answer the question. Yes, but it was my money too. You earned nothing, Judge Morrison said, and the contempt in her voice was palpable. You stole, systematically, over years, from your husband while he cared for his dying mother. Margaret returned to our table, pulled out a small device. Your Honor, there's more. I have audio recordings from Mrs. Patterson's vehicle, which Mr. Patterson co-owns, giving him legal right to record. One-party consent state. She pressed play. Gwendolyn's voice filled the courtroom, crystal clear. He's too stupid to notice, Desmond. I've been moving money for 2 years and he hasn't said a word. And now, with his mother dying? Perfect timing. He'll be too broken to fight. He never fights. Desmond's voice. Just make sure everything's transferred before you serve him. Gwendolyn again. Oh, it will be. By the time Gerald realizes what's happening, I'll have everything. The house, the accounts, everything. He'll have nothing. Laughter. Both of them laughing. The recording ended. The silence in that courtroom was absolute. I looked at Gwendolyn. She was crying now, mascara running down her face. Kyle had moved his chair away from her, literally distancing himself. Desmond stared at the table, his career flashing before his eyes. Judge Morrison removed her glasses. I've been on the bench for 28 years. I've seen some despicable behavior in that time. But this? She shook her head. Mrs. Patterson, I'm ordering the immediate return of all transferred assets to joint ownership pending distribution. The offshore account will be frozen and its contents returned. You will vacate the marital home within 48 hours. No alimony, no spousal support. You will be responsible for all legal fees, both yours and your husband's. Your Honor, please, Gwendolyn started. I'm not finished. The judge's voice could have frozen fire. I'm also referring this case to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. Mr. Crane, the State Bar will be receiving a copy of all evidence related to your involvement. Desmond's face went gray. Court is adjourned. Mrs. Patterson, you're dismissed. Gwendolyn stood there, swaying, like she couldn't quite believe what had just happened. Kyle was already halfway to the door. Desmond was frantically texting on his phone. Margaret leaned over to me. We won. But I wasn't looking at her. I was looking at Gwendolyn, who had finally turned to face me. The confident woman from 6 months ago was gone. In her place was someone I barely recognized. Small, scared, defeated. Gerald, she whispered. Please. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and for the first time in 6 months, I smiled. Clean break, Gwendolyn, I said, using her own words from the cemetery. No drama. I walked out of that courtroom into August sunshine, Margaret beside me discussing next steps, but I barely heard her. All I could think about was Mom's grave, and how I wished she could have seen this. Justice doesn't always look the way you think it will. Sometimes it's just a judge's gavel and the sound of someone else crying for once. Sometimes that's enough. You'd think winning would feel different. Cleaner somehow. Like in the movies where the hero walks away victorious and the credits roll and everyone goes home satisfied. It wasn't like that. The week after the hearing, I moved back into the house, my house. The one I'd built with my own hands 27 years ago, every nail and board chosen with care. Gwendolyn had 48 hours to vacate, and she used every minute of it, leaving the place looking like a crime scene. She'd taken everything she could carry. Dishes smashed in the sink, family photos ripped from frames, the glass scattered across the hardwood I'd installed myself. She'd even tried to take the kitchen cabinets, actually unscrewed them from the walls before apparently giving up halfway through. The message was clear. If she couldn't have it, she'd destroy it. I stood in the living room that first night, looking at the damage, and felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction. just a kind of hollow exhaustion that settled into my bones like winter cold. Margaret called that evening. The DA's moving forward with charges: financial fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy. Desmond's already cut a deal. He's testifying against Gwendolyn in exchange for a suspended law license instead of disbarment. He threw her under the bus. He did what people like him always do: saved himself. She paused. "Gerald, you won. You should feel good about this." "Should I?" "She tried to destroy you. You stopped her. That's justice." I thanked her and hung up, but her words kept echoing. Justice. Was that what this was? The kids called 2 days later. Laura first, then Marcus. They'd seen the court documents, the evidence, the recordings, their mother's voice plotting to rob me blind while their grandmother died. "Dad," Laura said, her voice thick with tears. "I'm so sorry. She told us you were hiding money, that you'd stopped loving her years ago. We believed her." "She's your mother," I said. "Of course you believed her. But we should have known, should have seen." "Laura, it's okay. I'm okay." Marcus was quieter, angrier. "I want to talk to her. Tell her what I think of what she did." "Don't," I said. "She's facing enough." "You're defending her? After everything?" "I'm protecting you. Both of you. She's still your mother. That doesn't change just because she stopped being my wife." They didn't understand. How could they? They were young enough to still see the world in clear divisions: good people, bad people, right and wrong. They didn't understand yet that people are complicated, that someone can love you genuinely for 10 years and then betray you viciously for the next 25, that both things can be true simultaneously. I started seeing the kids more. Sunday dinners, video calls with my grandson. They were careful around me at first, like I was made of glass, but gradually we found our rhythm again. They didn't mention Gwendolyn, and I didn't ask. But I heard things, through mutual friends, through the grapevine that exists in every small town. Gwendolyn had moved in with Desmond, but his wife Linda had kicked them both out when she found out about the scheme. Linda filed for divorce within a month. Apparently Desmond had used their money too, leveraging their house to fund Gwendolyn's legal fees. Kyle, the personal trainer boyfriend, had vanished the day after the hearing. Blocked her number, according to someone who knew someone. The country club revoked her membership. Her boutique job disappeared. The friends who'd commented, "You go, girl," on her Freedom Party posts suddenly couldn't remember her number. 6 months after the hearing, I ran into Josephine from Mom's church choir at the grocery store. "Gerald," she said, touching my arm. "I saw Gwendolyn the other day. She's working at the Walmart on Route 9. Cashier." I nodded, not knowing what to say. "She looked—" Josephine searched for words. "Smaller. Older. I almost didn't recognize her." That night I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about Gwendolyn at a Walmart register, scanning items, making small talk with strangers, coming home to whatever cheap apartment she could afford on minimum wage. Everything she'd schemed for, gone. Everything she'd valued, status, money, admiration, stripped away. She'd wanted to destroy me and ended up destroying herself. I should have felt satisfaction, victory, something. Instead, I just felt tired. The criminal charges were still pending. The DA said Gwendolyn could face up to 5 years. Her lawyer was pushing for a plea deal: probation, restitution, community service. Margaret called with updates every few weeks, but I stopped answering. The legal battle was over. I'd won. What was left to discuss? Mom's grave needed tending. I went every Sunday, pulled weeds, left fresh flowers, talked to her sometimes, told her about the grandkids, about the house repairs I was making. "I did it, Mom," I said one particularly gray afternoon. "She didn't win. You'd be proud." But would she? Mom had been a complicated woman, fierce, loving, occasionally cruel in the way that people who've survived hard lives can be. She'd told me once, near the end, "Gerald, anger will eat you alive if you let it. But forgiveness, that's not for them. That's for you." I hadn't understood what she meant then. I was starting to now. 1 year after the hearing, Gwendolyn showed up at my door. I'd just finished breakfast, eggs and toast, coffee the way I liked it finely without someone telling me I made it too strong. Through the front window, I saw her standing on the porch. No car in the driveway, so she'd walked or taken the bus. She looked thinner, older, wearing a coat I didn't recognize and shoes that had seen better days. I could have ignored her, could have called the cops, claimed she was violating something, could have let her stand there until she gave up and left. Instead, I opened the door. "Gerald?" Her voice was different, smaller. All the confidence bled out of it. "I know I shouldn't be here." "You're right. You shouldn't. I just—" She looked past me into the house. Our house. My house. "I needed to tell you I'm sorry. You probably don't believe that. Probably don't care. But I needed to say it anyway." I leaned against the doorframe. "Why now?" "Because I lost everything." She laughed, but it was a broken sound. "The DA dropped the charges. I took a plea deal. Probation, restitution, 500 hours community service. Desmond won't speak to me. Linda got the house in their divorce. Kyle—" She trailed off. "The friends, the club, the life I thought I wanted. All gone. And you know what the worst part is? I waited. I deserved it. All of it." Tears started, quiet and real. "I was cruel, Gerald. I was greedy. I treated you like you were nothing for years, and you just kept being decent, kept working, kept trying, and I repaid you by trying to destroy you at your mother's funeral." "Yes," I said. "You did. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I understand what I did, who I became." She wiped her eyes. "I'm working at Walmart, living in a studio apartment with a roommate who's 23, starting over at 58 years old, and it's what I deserve." We stood there in silence. The morning was cold, early spring fighting winter for dominance. A few birds sang in the trees I'd planted when we first moved in. "What do you want from me, Gwendolyn?" "Nothing," she said. "I don't want anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I could have slammed the door, could have told her exactly what her betrayal had cost me. The sleepless nights, the humiliation, the year of my life spent in that apartment above the dry cleaner planning her destruction. Instead, I went inside and came back with an envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it." Inside was a check for $5,000. She stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. "I don't understand." "Get yourself a better apartment. Buy some clothes that fit. Start over properly." "Gerald, I can't." "Yes, you can, because I'm telling you to." I looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time in years, maybe. Saw not the woman who'd betrayed me, but the girl from the Ferris wheel who'd made me forget my own name. Both versions were true. Both versions were her. "Why?" she whispered. "Because my mother raised me better than you treated me. Because holding on to anger was killing me as much as the betrayal did. Because—" I stopped, searched for the right words. "Because forgiveness isn't for you, Gwendolyn. It's for me." She stood there crying, holding that check. "We're done," I said quietly. "Truly done. Take the money, rebuild your life, and don't come back here, but know that I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." I closed the door. Through the window, I watched her walk away, disappearing down the street where we used to walk together 30 years ago. I made myself another cup of coffee, called Laura to ask about my grandson's birthday coming up, sat on the porch my grandfather had taught me to build, and watched the morning sun break through the clouds. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it. If I should have just walked away, let Gwendolyn take what she wanted and started fresh somewhere else. But here's what I learned. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's living well. It's choosing peace over rage. It's being the better person not because they deserve your mercy, but because you deserve your freedom. Gwendolyn thought she won that day at the funeral. But I'm still standing. I'm still here, in the house I built, with my kids back in my life and a heart that's finally quiet. And that's enough. So that's my story. A man betrayed at his mother's funeral who fought back with patience, strategy, and ultimately, forgiveness. Not the forgiveness that says, what you did was okay, but the kind that says, I'm not carrying this anymore. If this story moved you, if you felt Gerald's pain and his triumph, if you understand that sometimes justice and mercy can coexist, I need you to do something for me right now. Subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another story about real people facing impossible choices. Smash the like button if you believe in second chances, not for the people who hurt us, but for ourselves. And here's what I really want to know. Drop a comment below. Tell me, could you have forgiven Gwendolyn? Would you have given her that check, or would you have let her walk away with nothing? Because the most interesting thing about this story isn't what Gerald did. It's what you would do in his place. I read every single comment. Your stories, your struggles, your moments of betrayal and redemption. They matter. You matter. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And remember, the best revenge isn't making them suffer. It's making sure you heal. See you in the next one.